Okay, so we have 21 peer-reviewed papers, of which 9 are meta-reviews that cover a total of 305 different studies. And all of that together has put together the most optimal VO2 max maxing protocol. It's going to cover basically everywhere from someone who's just getting started to someone who's an elite athlete who's looking for the hyper-optimized 99 percentile, the most optimal program possible. And we're going to go through a few of these studies. First, we're going to go through 8 of these. There's one here that's super interesting. And we are going to read through these. I've made some highlights, things to look at that are going to influence this program. And I'm going to show you the program and explain why the program is the best program out there. So we're going to start with study 1. So this is a network meta-analysis. So it's taking a whole bunch of studies that say different training types. So you have repeated sprint training, you have high-intensity interval training, you have continuous training. And it's looking at all of those and making a relationship between each one. So it took 51 eligible studies, and it compared random sprint training to high-intensity interval training to sprint interval training, which is like repeated sprint training but with longer rest periods, and continuous training. And what it found is that probabilistically, repeated sprint training is going to be very effective, along with high intensity interval training, which is going to be, these are about similar, Hedges G is about the same, above sprint interval training and continuous training. So the other thing they realized was that the peak benefit for high intensity interval training was at 140 seconds of work duration and 165 seconds of rest duration, which ends up being a work to recovery ratio of 0.85. And most of the programs are 6 to 8 weeks. So, but they covered 3 to 6 weeks, and at 3 sessions per week, that's really where the benefits capped out. Anything more than 3, you're overtraining. And let me see what else I have here. There's a few other things. Oh, if you are a trained athlete, you're going to get better results than a elite athlete simply because you've already trained to a certain level, for the same reason that if you work out for a while, you're going to end up with a much lower response to exercise than someone who hasn't trained very much. Also, recovery periods exceeding 120 seconds are going to be bad because they're going to reduce your ability to actually adapt. You're trying to keep yourself above a certain metabolic threshold throughout your program. Next study. So essentially here, what we're looking at is that longer duration intervals in training, so that's high intensity interval training from 3 to 5 minutes, is going to be the most effective for stimulating VO2 max improvements. Of everything that you can do, the longer you do it is better. So, and this is specifically for high intensity interval training. We'll talk about for repeated sprint training why it might be more effective than high intensity interval training. But for high intensity interval training, you're going to want 3 to 5 minute duration intervals. And second thing, this study analyzes that high intensity interval training will be better than your standard running training. If you are running for sport and you're doing 5-mile loops, you're doing like 5Ks over and over again, you're doing 800 repeats, all this like endurance, or I guess 800 repeats aren't endurance training as much, but if you're doing like 3,200 repeats as your training, as endurance training, you're going to get less VO2 max results than high intensity interval training. And of course, you're going to have, this also backs up, there's also a meta-analysis that backs up longer duration is going to be better. We're also going to look at this. So this is important. I only marked one useful thing on this study. And this study is going to, essentially, this is key. And it's only marked here once. These studies are also in the other 21 studies that are there. But aerobic intensity, which is the time amount spent above 90% of your VO2 max, is going to be the driving factor in VO2 max improvement. That's exercise that is at or near not maintainable, if that makes sense. Like if I if you're running at, or you're cycling at 100% of your VO2 max, your body can just barely keep up. And technically, you can keep doing that indefinitely, assuming you didn't ever get fatigued. Anything above 90%, like anything at your peak VO2 max or your peak VO2, is going to be the driving factor for VO2 max improvement. If you think about it like you would think about sets in the gym for hypertrophy, you want to be close to failure at all times. At all times, you want to be close to failure or close to your 100% of your VO2 max. Note that you can go above 100% of your VO2 max with sprinting and repeated sprint training. And that's going to be up to like 175% of your VO2 max, but your body has to catch up afterward. So you can't actually maintain that for 5 minutes. So, and this program is based off of HRV training data. So a lot of data has come out that suggests that training only on days, like doing hard training only on days when your HRV, heart rate variability, is high, has a much better stimulus to fatigue ratio than doing training when your HRV is low. We found that HRV guided training and control training enhance the athlete's VO2 max much significantly higher than at a significantly higher effect size for the HRV training group. So you want to train in accordance to your VO2 max. And so this was the first study that came out that basically proved this concept, which was 26 healthy males. And so in the traditional group, VO2 max did not change significantly, but in the heart rate variability altered training group, significant increases in load and VO2 max were noticed. So we're looking at, so this is important. The effect sizes it says are small. It's not small. It's small because it's hard to measure exactly how effective the change is. If you look at it, you're going to see small significant changes. I argue it's moderate to large significant changes for training optimally with your HRV guided training. Some other thing is, this is going to be interesting to read. It's in the description. You can read it. It's the physiology that we're going to end up talking about here. This is the physiology. And two more. So this one is 80-20. So the optimal amount of training for VO2 max is going to be 20% zone 4-5 cardio and 80% zone 1-2 cardio. So 20% 4-5, 80% 1-2. And this was found in elite athletes training. There is a study they did that's not this one, but it's in the 21 that's on skiers, and they looked at what are these skiers doing, and it ends up that about 20% of their training is super hard, zone 4, zone 5, near heart rate max, and the rest 80% of their training or more was like hikes, jogs, anything that gets your heart rate up, but not in the zone of fatigue. So this is going to be like hikes, jogs, easy cycles, stuff that's like super, not easy, but like super moderate, super manageable. And this is going to be high volume of high intensity training and mostly low intensity training. And we're incorporating this into our program as well. And we're also going to incorporate hard starts. So hard starts are when you train super maximally. So that's going to be above your VO2 max for the first 10 seconds or so, and then go back to normal. And this is going to increase your time above that 90% VO2 max threshold. That's going to be because I didn't highlight anything, but essentially by starting more, you get your heart rate up, you get your exercise, you break in. It's like, there's not really a physiological way to say it, but you break into your higher VO2 ranges by going all out for the first 10 seconds or so, and we're going to incorporate that in our program as well. So these were the 8 studies that we're going to look at. the rest of these are in the description. I will also note that this Notion page is also in the description. So if you want to follow along, first thing you're going to need is either an assault bike or a place to run. I really do recommend the assault bike because you're going to be able to measure how many METs or metabolic equivalent of task you're exercising at, which is going to correlate. You basically can see at what percentage of your VO2 max you're working at any point. And you're also going to want a heart rate variability monitor. There's this app on the App Store called Welltory. I've used it. It's fine. It works kind of. It's better if you get like a tracker like a Fitbit or a Whoop. You can also see that there. If you're following along on the document, you can also click on these links. And yeah, so we're going to get into the program in just a moment. Something else you can do for these workouts is you can take a pre-workout that increases nitric oxide. And this is going to increase blood flow. It's just going to help your body move more blood throughout the system, which can give you a like temporary boost to your perceived VO2 max. And it's going to be, this beat it sport thing, apparently Olympic athletes use it. It works. It's 400 milligrams of nitrate. And you can also use any sort of normal pre-workout. So this is the C4 pre-workout and the Gorilla Mode Nitric upgraded pre-workout. This one doesn't have caffeine. I think this one is probably better because caffeine also has, in studies, has shown 3 to 5% extra power output. So if you want caffeine, I recommend caffeine. If you are against caffeine for some reason, this is best. So it's going to be this plus one of these. Okay, so the program. We're the hyper simple program. This is for anyone who's never done training before, or they don't really care too much about being optimal. It's the review in that first study said 140 seconds, 165 easy spin is going to be the best program for, and 3 days a week is where the benefits cap out. So we're going to go at 88 to 92%, around 90% of your VO2 max. You can go a little higher than this. This is just a conservative estimate. You want to generally just, but it's going to feel different because you're not doing max effort. You're going above max VO2. Operating at 100% of your VO2 is not going to feel like max effort. It's going to feel like 80 to 90% effort. So I keep it low because you want it to feel around like 90, 88% effort, because that's going to be around like 95 to 100% VO2 max. So that's the super simple routine if you've never exercised. And this I recommend to everybody, the easy optimal for everyone. This is going to be the 95%. This is going to be the essentially 80-20, although it's going to be more effective than 80-20. It's going to be like 95% scientifically optimal. But it's like, if you don't want to think too much about your training, we're going to go with this medium routine. So this is the beginner routine, this is the medium routine. So you're going to track your HRV with either the Welltory app or with a Fitbit or a Whoop. And on high HRV days, you're going to do 5 to 8 sets of 3 minutes at 90 to 90% to 95% max effort or VO2 max. At this point, I'd probably closer to VO2 max and max effort, but you basically want to keep above that 90% threshold. And then you're going to take 2 minutes of rolling rest. So not total rest, you're going to keep your legs moving. And this is on an assault bike. You can also do this running, and that would just be a 3 minute, that would be like 3 minutes at like 800 pace, and 2 minutes of walking would be the equivalent running. And you're going to always hard start first. Again, you're going to get more time above 95 or 90% VO2 max. So you're going to run at an extra 10% effort to start. So that's going to be like your takeoff. And then you're going to keep running at 800 pace. And that's going to be your HIIT day. This is going to be your HIIT day. And you alternate that with your repeated sprint training day. There's going to be 3 sets of 8 sets of 12 seconds full 175% VO2 max, as much as you can fucking go, and then 18 seconds roll, stand like equivalent to walking, and then 3 minutes between set rest. So what that looks like is you're going to go for 12 seconds, either sprinting or on the assault bike going all out. And then for 18 seconds, you're going to walk. And then for 12 seconds, you're going to sprint. And then 18 seconds, you're going to walk. And 12 seconds, you're going to sprint all out. And 18 seconds, you're going to walk. And 12 seconds, you're going to sprint all out. And you're going to do all of that 8 times. And then after that, you're going to wait 3 minutes and then do that again. And then 3 minutes and then again. And that's going to get you about like 5 to 6 minutes of time above VO2 max. And that's definitely enough. That's above the 3 to 5 minute threshold for VO2 max gains. Plus, since you're doing so much super maximal work, you're going to end up loading the like peripheral system and mitochondrial priming better than what you can do with high intensity interval training. And on normal heart rate variability days, you're going to do the same thing as the easy routine, because the easy routine we don't track. On low HRV days, you're just going to walk or you can rest. It doesn't matter. You don't want to train too much on low HRV days. And the key here is to only train on days you didn't train the day before. So even if you have like green HRV or high HRV on the day after you've trained really hard, you've done your repeated sprint training, you want to still skip the next day. So if on Monday I train hard, on Tuesday I'm not going to train hard. What you want to do on these off days is you're going to do 40 to 60 minutes of 1 to 2 cardio. And this is to get to that 80-20 balance of zone 1-2 and zone 4-5. And that's going to be like a hike. Depends on your fitness level. Essentially, you want your heart rate to be up, but still be able to talk while you're exercising. And that's going to be like 95% optimal. We're optimizing for HRV. We're optimizing for hard starts. We're getting the most effective training methods, which is high intensity interval and repeated sprint training. We're also going to have like the most optimal normal HRV, like high intensity interval for normal days. And we're also going to optimize based off the 80-20 principle. This is easily 95% optimized. Like if you are like a high school athlete or not competing in elite competitions, this will work too. If you want to work in strength, just do it on off days. You can count it as your 40-60 minutes of 1 to 2 cardio because you're getting your heart rate up. That works too. And for the hyper advanced 99% optimized 305 study based routine, the 13-week cyclic program, super hyper optimized. Now, I'm going to explain this. It's not going to make too much sense unless you read it through a few times. That's why the link is in the description. Essentially, we're going to run a rolling 7-day program, which is that you want a minimum of 2 and a maximum of 3 high intensity training days per 7-day cycle. And you're with the same thing as before, you're never going back to back on high intensity. If your morning heart rate variability is above baseline minus 10%, you can greenlight a hard session. We're actually getting rid of this normal HRV thing for this program, where normal or high counts as a green light for a hard session. And this is because we don't actually, like, the difference between normal and high isn't that much. We're just making sure that if you're not recovered, you're not training hard. That's all we care about. So we've got the 2 programs that we do on hard days. It's either sprint interval, repeated sprint training, or VO2 interval, just like above. So what you're going to do is on the first week after your loading week, you're going to do 6 sets of 3 minutes of 95 to 100% VO2 max with 90 seconds recovery. And you can also do this, and this is actually more optimal, to do it as a descending ladder, as long as your set minutes add up to the same amount as the total minutes and the sets are the same. So this is 6 sets, this is 6 sets, this is 18 minutes, this is 18 minutes. And that's going to help you reduce total fatigue because you're going to be able to go harder on the first one than you're going to be able to go on the last one. You're doing this sort of descending pyramid thing. Basically just do like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then see how many like minutes you have left and then stick that in somewhere. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is 15. So I added an extra 3 in here. And so you're going to hard start, and you're going to add 1 rep for the first 3 mesocycle weeks. So on the second week after your loading week, you're going to go 7 for 3 minutes and then 8, 7 for 8 minutes and then 8 for 3 minutes. And then you're going to do 4 by 4 for 4, 5, 6, don't increase it. And then 4 by 5 for 7, 8, 9, don't increase it. And then there's first sprint interval. We're not actually going to increase this because it's going to increase naturally. Because as you gain more VO2 max, you can train harder to that VO2 max, and it's going to naturally progress. So you're going to, same thing as for the intermediate program. And this is the loading week. We're going to start our 13-week cycle with a repeated sprint training only block. So rather than alternating between VO2 train or high intensity interval training and repeated sprint training, for the first week of the 13-week cycle, you're going to include a repeated sprint training only week. So that's same weekly cadence program, except rather than alternating between HIIT and RST, you're going to stick with just RST. And then week 1 to 3 counts after that. So all this is after this loading week. So on off days, you're going to try to get 4 to 6 hours of zone 1 to 2 cardio. That's going to be from hiking, jogging, easy cycling, same thing as above. You do more on high or normal days, so that's going to be above baseline minus 10%, and low, you're going to do less or rest. Generally, you want 1 rest day each week from just doing nothing. So it's not 1 rest day per 7-day period, but 1 rest day per 7-day week is going to be optimal. And you can throw that in wherever you want. Like if you're just feeling like shit, you can just throw that in. And again, we're going to go for the 80-20. That's optimal. And we're going to this is not ever going to be an issue, but you have to make sure there's always 1 high intensity training session in the past 7 days. And that's going to be super easy to do because you're going to have normal HRV at least 1 day every 7 days. But because you're going to end up, if you don't do that, you're going to end up deloading, which your VO2 max goes down by about 7% after 3 weeks of no training. So you want to stop any sort of deload from happening, or any sort of prolonged deload from happening during the loading phase, or not loading, but the reload phases. We're going to actually, this is contradictory to what I just said, but I'm going to explain why this is. We're going to go 3 loading weeks and 1 deload week, aside from the first loading week. So we're going to do 1 loading week, which is RST only, and 3 loading weeks and 1 deload, 3 loading weeks, 1 deload, 3 loading weeks, 1 deload. And that's going to be the total of the 13 weeks that the cycle is. So it's going to be, that's where we get our 1 to 3, 4 to 6, 7 to 9. It's going to be 1 to 3, deload, 4 to 6, deload, 7 to 9, and then restart the cycle. And that ends up being, where was I? Here. And then 1 deload week is just going to be 1 single high intensity session, which is going to be whenever you feel good, stick it around the middle of the week. So like a Wednesday, if you're starting the program on a Sunday, you want, as long as your heart rate variability is green or yellow, that's fine. Just do it then. And that's going to help offset any sort of deloading effects. And the reason why we put this in is because overtraining actually can decrease VO2 max, because you're going to increase the stress response. You're going to decrease the ability to adapt to the stimulus you give it. And there's some science behind it, which is explained in the 21 studies. It's a little complicated, but essentially you want to avoid overtraining, and that's why we put in the deload week. And this is for if you feel like it's not doing enough for you. If you feel like it's not doing enough, you can decrease your recoveries for the VO2 intervals by 75 to 60 seconds on the 4 to 6 weeks. That's only if you feel like it's not doing enough for you. If just doing enough where you don't touch the recovery, because it's going to extend some time over VO2 max without effort, but it's not going to help you too much. So here's some example weeks. I hope I explained this well. You can read through it. Essentially, you're just alternating on VO2 and sprint interval, or your HIIT and RST days, and this example week should help. So if you're starting on a Monday, this is for weeks 2 to 3 of 13. So we already did the RST loading week for the cycle, and we're now in this. So we're doing VO2 max 6x3. We're good for our off day since we did the day before. We're good for an off day, so we're going to do 75 minutes, 1 to 2 spin. And then we're red, so we're going to keep it as an off day, even though we haven't trained the day before. And that's going to be 50 minutes brisk walk. And then since we're green again, or yellow, in this case we're green, since we did VO2 last week, we're going to do RST. And that's going to be 3, 8, 12, whatever. And by the way, PVO2 is just peak VO2. It's the same thing. It's just shorter to write. 75 minutes, zone 1 to 2 jog. This is because we trained yesterday, even though we're yellow. We trained yesterday. We're green again, so we do VO2 since we did RST yesterday. And then red, so we're just throwing in full rest because we haven't rested at all this week. Now, next week, we are at yellow, but we didn't train the day before, so we're doing RST again because we did VO2 max last time. We're yellow, but if you count the number of sessions we've done in the last 7 days, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, we're going to end up seeing that 1, 2, 3, we've already done 3 sessions. So we're going to skip the high intensity training for today. So we're going to do 75 minutes, 1 to 2 spins, same as this. And then we're red again, so we're skipping another day. And this is just how this program ends up going. Is that since we're red, we're just going to do a 15-minute brisk walk. We're green again, so we increase it by 1. Remember, we're increasing the number of sets you do for the first few weeks, and that's going to be 7 by 3 at VO2 max for 90 seconds rest. And then we're green again, so we're going to go on the upper end of the 1 to 2 spectrum, so we're going to go for a steep hike and do it for 90 minutes. So we're green. And then yellow, we're yellow and we didn't train the day before, so we're going to do another repeated sprint training. If you look at this is 40 minutes, 4 to 5, way above the required threshold for VO2 max, and right about where it plateaus and before it cuts off. So we're about 40 minutes before, and 30 minutes is right at the optimal point where it plateaus for this week. So this is like a perfectly optimal amount of training. And this is 99% optimized. This is the perfect program out there. So if you want to look at the science, basically what we're doing, why we split between repeated sprint training and high intensity interval training, is that you're actually training different parts of your body. You're training like central delivery and you're training peripheral extraction. So when you do long, high-intensity blocks, you're training your body how to send blood throughout your system. You're increasing your cardiovascular, or mostly cardio health more than anything. You're helping your heart pump blood. You're helping your vascular system move blood around. That's what you're training. You're doing sprint interval training. You're increasing your body's ability to use energy efficiently because you're going to be running hypoxically. You're running above your VO2 max. You can't actually get yourself enough oxygen. So it's gonna increase your body's ability to use the oxygen it gives you. And for recovery, when you HRV guide, you're getting better parasympathetic rebound, lower inflammation. You're basically stopping overtraining. And the explanation of hard start is that you're getting motor unit recruitment. So this is just basics of why we're doing this. You can read this, it doesn't matter. We're going to end the video in like a second. Basically, we're looking at this, we're looking at this. We want HRV to high quality, adequate recovery. Yeah, I mean, this is just the science we've already talked about. And we already talked about the pre-workouts. I highly recommend these. These are going to help you get more out of your workout. And of course, it's going to give you more time above your natural VO2 max, because if you're like transiently increasing your VO2 max, you're going to be able to get above your natural VO2 max more and with less effort than without increasing it. So get this Beat It shot from Amazon. It's in the link, and get this either one of these pre-workouts. If you can also go with the less powerful pre-workout, this one has like the gorilla mode has like extra nitric stuff in it to like help you get like better pumps mostly, but it also works for cardiovascular work, so this works too. Look at these studies. These studies are amazing. They're like, I've written what they say here, so you can actually look at them. And yeah, make sure you're training well. Enjoy your optimal program.